Bollywood once hailed her as, well, the most glamorous woman in India. If you look back at the cinematic archives, you see a woman who was seemingly living out a perfect dream life. But to truly understand the mesmerizing and honestly heartbreaking untold tragedy of Parveen Babi, we first have to look at the three pillars that defined her public illusion. Beauty. Millions absolutely adored her. She possessed this rare, just magnetic presence that completely commanded the silver screen. She left audiences utterly captivated the second she appeared. You see, she wasn't just an actress. She was a genuine icon of style and grace, setting trends that entire generations literally tried to replicate. Success. Directors desperately wanted her in every single film. She was, essentially, the ultimate golden ticket for the Indian box office, turning everything she touched into this massive cultural phenomenon. I mean, when her name was on the marquee, theaters just sold out. The industry simply couldn't get enough of her. And fame. Fans looking from the outside truly believed she had absolutely everything a person could ever want in life. The lavish parties, the endless adoration, the magazine covers. To the whole world, she was living a flawless, untouchable existence. But behind the fame, Parveen Babi was silently fighting a battle that nobody could see. Behind those glamorous smiles captured by flashing cameras, she was slowly being pushed into a world of profound loneliness, fear, and heartbreak. The gap between the illusion of what the world saw and the agonizing reality of what she was hiding was devastating. And when the world finally noticed, it was already too late. To really understand the depth of this tragedy, we kind of have to start at her beginnings. Born on April 4th, 1954, in Junagadh, Gujarat, Parveen came from a royal and deeply respected family. Right from her childhood, she was a highly intelligent, fiercely confident, and she simply stood out from everyone around her. After studying in Ahmedabad, destiny began pulling her toward modeling. And with her striking features and undeniable charisma, well, it really didn't take long for Bollywood to notice her incredible allure. And when she did arrive, she completely rewrote the rules. Back in the 1970s, Bollywood heroines were mostly portrayed as simple, demure, and traditional. Parveen Babi completely shattered that mold. She brought this unprecedented level of confidence, modern fashion, and Western style. She introduced a completely new, unapologetic personality to Indian cinema. She was bold, she was independent, and she was fiercely her own person. And very quickly, this distinct identity made her one of the absolute biggest actresses in the entire industry. Which brings us to what can only be called her superstar era. The stakes were incredibly high, and she was at the absolute peak of the mountain. She co-starred with the towering titans of her time, guys like Amitabh Bachchan, Shashi Kapoor, and Dharmendra, delivering massive, culture-defining hits like Diwar, Amar Akbar Anthony, Shan, and Namak Halal. She became a true national sensation. Actually, she didn't just conquer India. She became the first Bollywood actress to grace the cover of Time magazine. That was a level of international recognition that was incredibly rare for the era. To the world, she possessed limitless wealth, unbridled success, and just unimaginable fame. But, as we see so often in these stories, the brightest stars often hide the darkest pain. Behind the cameras, her personal life was becoming deeply, deeply complicated. Her relationships, particularly with filmmaker Mahesh Bhatt, frequently made sensational and really invasive headlines. The relentless pressure of being a national sensation, of constantly being watched and judged, was immense. And something much darker, something truly terrifying, was beginning to shift beneath the surface of her life. Slowly, the people closest to her started noticing some really frightening changes. A growing, irrational fear was taking hold. Parveen began feeling profoundly unsafe, genuinely believing that powerful people, global organizations, and figures of authority were plotting to harm her. This wasn't just a passing phase, you know. It wasn't just the stress of fame. This fear kept growing stronger, slowly and systematically consuming her daily reality until her world became a truly terrifying place. Eventually, medical professionals gave this paralyzing fear a name: paranoid schizophrenia. It's a serious, chronic mental health condition that fundamentally alters a person's thoughts, emotions, and their grip on reality. Now, what is absolutely crucial to understand here is the era we're talking about. At a time when mental health was heavily stigmatized and barely understood in India, there was virtually no public conversation or empathy, really, for what she was going through.
Parveen had to suffer her illness mostly in the dark. The glamorous actress everyone worshipped was silently, helplessly, falling apart inside. And then, a sudden disappearance. One day, this massive, ubiquitous superstar simply vanished from Bollywood. The fans were completely shocked. Rumors spread like wildfire across the country. Where did she go? What actually happened to her? For years, the woman whose face was once on every single magazine cover stayed entirely away from films and public life, silently battling her inner demons while the outside world just ruthlessly speculated in gossip.
She lived alone. The heartbreaking reality is that the very same industry that once relentlessly celebrated her success simply moved on. The bright lights faded, the flashing camera stopped, the phone calls, which were once endless, dwindled to absolutely nothing. The people who once clamored to be near her were nowhere to be found when the glamour faded and the illness took over. She avoided people completely. Think about that tragic transformation for a second. A dazzling superstar, a woman who once ruled the bustling, vibrant nights of Bollywood, who was surrounded by thousands of adoring fans, was now spending almost all of her time locked away inside her apartment. She was paralyzed by fear, unable to even trust the world outside her door. Completely disconnected from the world. The crushing isolation she must have felt is hard to even comprehend. She slowly withdrew from everything and everyone she once knew. A life once lived entirely in the vibrant public eye was now engulfed in absolute, deafening silence. The woman who once had the world at her feet was now trapped within the four walls of her own mind. Which brings us to the tragic events of January 2005. Neighbors noticed something was terribly wrong. Newspapers and milk packets had been collecting outside her apartment door for several days, totally untouched. A deafening silence lingered in the hallway. When the police finally forced their way inside, Parveen Babi was found dead. She had passed away days earlier, completely alone, entirely removed from the glamorous world that had once worshipped her. Her death sent shock waves across the entire nation, because in that tragic moment, people suddenly realized the heartbreaking truth. Behind the immense fame and the legendary beauty, there was a woman silently asking for help. A beautiful, mysterious star who had been fighting her absolute darkest battles completely on her own. It forced an entire industry, and a whole nation really, to look in the mirror and reckon with how they treat their most vulnerable icons. Parveen Babi's story is not just a story about Bollywood, it's a profound, enduring look at loneliness, the devastating reality of mental health, and the dangerous illusion of success. And it leaves us with a final, haunting question. If fame, wealth, and universal adoration cannot protect us from our darkest inner pain, who is truly safe? Even today, she remains one of Indian cinema's most unforgettable stars. Beautiful, mysterious, and deeply tragic. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. If this story touched your heart, remember to look beyond the smiles of those around you, because sometimes the brightest faces are fighting the hardest battles.